Lagoon Park's junior development program runs from the 1st of April through December. These junior players practice for 2 hours, 3 days a week, under the supervision of tennis professional Jackie Bushman, a former All-SEC standout at Auburn.
We're trying to get all the kids here in Montgomery that have some talent, advanced or intermediate. We try to teach them the basic fundamentals, which I think they've got to have for them to move on. And we've got ages here from 8 to 17. We go 3 days a week. We give them all the drills and conditioning and just try to see how much potential they have.
Among the advanced players he's working with now are Marty Bailey and Lisa Hinckley, both #1 players on their high school teams. Others with tournament experience are Michael Drummond and Linda Kim. 3 juniors receive individual attention from Bushman: Kyle Anderson, Dal Holly, and David Baggett, each with a good chance at playing collegiate tennis. Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sports.
Liebern and all that he's meant to Exchange and his friendship to us. Exchange is all about. He's one of our hoodlums, in case you didn't know it. Does he look like a hoodlum to you? Yeah. Smile, a hoodlum, all right? He's one of 30 district presidents among all of you. You know, somebody in Nashville, a suburb of Smyrna, Tennessee, as a matter of fact, Frank, and on the other side. So we share a lot of things in common with you. Hope we've had some new members to be inducted here today. We can make things happen. We're interested and concerned about communicating, and I mentioned that we've been doing too much transmitting and not enough receiving, but it's a two-way street, and we need to constantly communicate and be able to know what our membership wants at the local club level as well as at the national club level. So hopefully some of those things will be coming about and will be stronger and will be.
Balls of fire and yellow-green smoke were visible for miles in the twilight. The plant had no history of accidents or safety problems, and so far, no one has any idea what caused the tremendous explosion. Billy Johnson and his family were eating dinner about a quarter of a mile away when all at once, a huge roar.
All I know that the plant blew up. They were fighting a fire, and which I just live across the road, and I heard it. This time I haven't found out exactly what kind of gas or how toxic it is. But if it's toxic enough to hurt your health, we want to get the people out quick as possible.
Coosa Chemical produced a weed-killing herbicide, and that chemical caused firefighters problems.
And as we got down there, he was running down there to tell the lead fireman not to put any water on it. And about the time he opened up his line, one of the 55-gallon drums blew up. And when it did blow up, it knocked him a good little piece back. And at that point, the plant manager told us to get out of the way. It was just too dangerous to mess with.
Firefighters are now simply waiting for the blaze to burn itself out. Then investigators can begin picking through the rubble to try and determine just what caused the explosion.
Gary Hansen made less than $3,000 last year. He was expecting to get back the $317.90 he paid in federal taxes. Instead, he got a surprise.
My mother called me and said my income tax was in. So I went there to get it last night, and when I opened it up, I discovered I owed them $189,000.
What did you think when you saw that?
Just started laughing.
The IRS said Gary owed them the $189,424.57 because he let them figure his tax. Well, if the IRS figured it, Gary decided they should be able to fix it. So he took his problem to the Birmingham office. After checking the computer records, it was agreed that a mistake had been made.
I think some key punch operator must have had her mind on something else the day she processed your return. We do make mistakes, but I'm glad you brought it to our attention. And
after being assured that the mistake would be corrected, Gary went back to work, but he's not happy yet.
I'll be happy when I get my check.
Yeah. Gary says he has no hard feelings because even the government can make a mistake, but he'll let someone else figure his taxes next year.
Commission President Billy Joe Camp explains that the new recovery method will be based on 3-month projections, but he clarifies that customers will still receive monthly, not quarterly bills. Camp says the new method is also like the one used by the Georgia PSC, which he says Georgia Power and its customers praise highly. Although the initial projections will be on a quarterly basis, additional hearings can be called for changing fuel costs. With the new method on the horizon, the Commission extensively questioned Alabama Power officials about their plant operations, especially Farley Unit 2, which is expected to go online in early July.
We're going to have some additional nuclear generation that we've not had before. And as you know, it's much cheaper to generate from nuclear than it is from burning coal, so it will have a downward effect on the energy adjustment factor.
Conway says customers' June power bills will get a small relief from Farley 2's testing operations before it goes commercial. Jane Matheson, WSFA TV News.
The board voted to meet with the Montgomery lawmakers after School Superintendent Henry Adair gave his report on the legislative session. Adair says the Montgomery school system needs at least the same amount of money next fiscal year that the legislature appropriated this year. He says that figure doesn't include the current 10% proration and says the full amount is needed to maintain personnel and meet accreditation standards. As for the legislative session, Adair talked a little about the 2 education bills that failed to pass. He says the Senate version of the bill would have cost the Montgomery system $1,200,000 and the House bill $1 million. Both bills would have cut the local system's operations budget and would have had to be made up in some way. On a brighter note, Adair said several legislative bills passed that will help the school system tremendously, like the passage of the Cates bill, which requires businesses to pay income taxes on a monthly rather than quarterly basis, and a bill still awaiting the governor's signature that will exempt Montgomery from paying the 4-cent gasoline tax. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News.
It was evident before the game that both father and son were serious about settling their little family feud.
What do you think it's going to take to win tonight?
A lot.
You think the rest of these guys here can help you?
Yeah.
I want to win, and I know he wants to win, and I'm pulling for him, and but I've got to try to win because that's what we're here for.
Last night was the first time these two teams had played each other, and from a family standpoint, that's probably just as well.
Oh, good gracious. Ooh, it was a good pitch, too.
The pressure mounted as Gambacurta and Associates surrendered a run early. Could have been worse had Jay not made the out on this controversial play.
Go, 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 run, 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 run. Hustle, run! No, oh, he slid under it. He slid under it, up. Good gracious.
Drugs went on to win 4-3, holding off a late rally by Jay's team. Father had won this time.
All right, all right. All right. Ball game. Go tell him good game. Go tell him good ball game. Go tell him good game. Go tell him good ball game. That was a Donnybrook, Larry. Good ball game.
Defeat was not so easy for son.
Okay. Don't worry about it anymore. You played a good ball game, okay? I'm proud of you because you played a good ball game, son.
Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sports.
I don't know.
had an awful lot of lady luck, and you know you need that when you get in these tournaments with good people, good teams. You got to have a little of that to go with it. So we just hope it'll continue.
Some of the guys' experience from last year being out there, do you think that'll help?
Yes, I think so, because I think last year that some of the players were so awed of the fact that, you know, they were in a national tournament. I think going back this year, I think they're going a little more determined to try to bring the big trophy home.
I think he meant a great deal to us, and next year and the years to come, he will even be more of a factor. He went through an adjustment period this year from starting 4 years at Kentucky or 3 years at Kentucky to coming off the bench. I think it took him a while to adjust to that, but next year he should be a key player for us.
What are you looking towards the draft? The guard situation looks pretty good.
We're well set at the guard spot. Our biggest need, and has been for the last 3 years, is to add strength on the front line, physical strength. We are not a powerhouse. We don't have a powerhouse front line. We have a good front line, but we need probably help at forward and center.
What about Kevin Loder, Alabama State's All-American? I understand you've seen some film of Kevin.
We watched him on film. We watched him this year here in Montgomery. We watched him in the Aloha Classic in Honolulu. And I think we have a pretty good line on him. He appears to be a solid player, a steady player. He's a passer, he's a rebounder, he can run, he's a shooter, and a pretty impressive basketball player.
And your first pick, what, is late in the draft?
We will pick 20th, so our position will be that we just have to wait and see what the other teams do prior to making our selection. But we think that there will be about 6 players that we can choose from, and of those 6, we should be able to get a pretty good player.
And that translates very well into the overall economy. Places food about a percent and a half below the overall economy. And if we hadn't had these big spurts in peanut butter and produce, we'd be looking at a much lower price.
Although produce prices are still high, they dropped 23% this month. Fifield says that's caused by better weather in the produce growing areas of Florida and Alabama. Other good buys this month include beef, pork, dairy products, and especially poultry, which has dropped 2.2%. The Farm Bureau reports food prices to be the lowest in northeast Alabama. The northwest section of the state shows the highest market basket prices. Jane Matheson, WSFA TV News.
And Donna Cooper, Anita Bryan.
Hi, Donna. How you doing?
Donna's the secretary to Mr. Cheney. Bob and Anita Bryan.
Sure, I'll sign it for you. You want them? Get them all their hot $1 piece. Let me get my money. I'm waiting on Bear Bryant now. Next time he comes, you have to get that for him. He's my kissing cousin, you know. Is he? Yeah. Oh, sure.
Stallcup says the budget cuts will take 25% of Title X funds that are used to provide birth control clinics, exams, and pregnancy testing, but not abortions, for low-income women. Stallcup says the remainder of the federal money will be lumped into a program that includes unrelated services like rat control. Stallcup's appealing to Governor James and state leaders to commit themselves as well as state funds to family planning. Stallcup says Alabama has some of the highest rates in the nation for infant mortality, cervical cancer, and teenage pregnancy. And he says Senator Denton's bill allocating $30 million a year to promote chastity and self-control would be more effective if parents took that responsibility.
I think it's probably a nice idea for a parent to encourage his children, but I don't think it's a very good idea, and I don't think it's realistic for a national program.
Jane Matheson, WSFA TV News.
The wreckage of the chemical plant looked like
When the bell rang, it was obvious that Montgomery school children were happy to be out for the summer. Now the only thing they have left is to pick up their report cards on Tuesday. Then a week from Monday, summer school starts. This year, all high schools and all junior highs except Baldwin and 18 elementary schools will be open for a summer session. Each elementary school will have at least one kindergarten class for preschoolers who've scored below 50 on the California Achievement Test. Summer school ends July 25th, but the students won't be the only ones in class this summer. The Montgomery school system will have a parent workshop July 13th through 17th for moms and dads with elementary-aged children to help the parents sharpen their skills in helping their children study. In addition, several workshops are scheduled for the teachers and other personnel.
But most Montgomery students have the entire 3 months of vacation to look forward to. Then on August 25th, it's back to the classroom for yet another big school year. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News.
Oh, that they're no longer allowed to sell them on the street?
Well, Julie was a good old man, he lived below the mill, and Julie had 2 daughters and a 40-gallon still. One girl washed the boiler, the other washed the spout, and Mama corked the bottles when old Julie fetched them out. Julie slipped up the holler, Julie tried to make a dollar, Julie gives Laura payback someday. The revenue escaped for him, must have been through the woods, but Julie stayed behind Mom, never lost his goods. Julie was a trader, and in the town he'd come with sugar by the bushel and molasses by the ton. Julie slipped up the holler, Julie tried to make a dollar, Julie gives Laura payback someday.
Four of the top 5 scores were posted early in the day. Chip Holcomb of Alex City Junior College took medalist honors, fashioning a 5-under par 67 in the opening round. Light winds made the normally grueling Rolling Hills course play a little easier today, but that's not to take anything away from Holcomb's superb 67. Another Alex City golfer stands alone in second. Zess Willis turned in a 3-under 69. That's 2 shots better than Lagoon Park's David Bailey and yet another Alex City par shooter, Gene Sawyer. They're at 1-under 71. Bailey's 71 came this afternoon. Defending champ Talbert Griffin, wearing the colors of the Montgomery Country Club, opened with an even par 72. He was 3-under at one point today. A host of golfers are another shot back at 73, including MCC's Caldwell Hooper, Norman Parks of Rolling Hills, and 2 more members of that red-hot Alex City team, Greg Flesher and John Lee. 5 members of the team shot 73 or better today. Other noteworthy scores posted in the opening round. Last year's runner-up, Hamp Green, in with a 74, and David Head, the recent Bonnie Crest Invitational champion, at 75. Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sports. Late afternoon brought more subpar scores, but no one in the field of 160 could better Chip Holcomb's 5-under par 67. The Alex City Junior College golfer has a 2-stroke lead over teammate Zess Willis, who came in with a 3 under 69 in the first round of the 54-hole affair. 5 Alex City players shot 73 or better today, including Gene Sawyer, who was among a large group at 71. That is 1 under par. Also at 71 were Collins McCrary, Lagoon Park's David Bailey, Troy State's Donnie Phillips, and Ricky Albright of the Montgomery Country Club. 5 strokes back of the leader Holcomb, but certainly not out of it, are the tournament's defending champion Talbert Griffin, another MCC par shooter, and Mike Riley of Ole Miss. They are at even par 72. This is Riley here making birdie at the par 4 5th hole. His approach left him a mere 4 feet to negotiate. The Rebel long knocker drilled an 8-iron here at the par 3 8th hole to within 10 feet. Light winds made the Rolling Hills Monster play a little easier today. Tougher pin placements and a lengthening of the course for the final 2 rounds should make for a real dogfight. Chip Holcomb, again the medalist, with a 67. Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sports.
These trains aren't toys. In fact, they're actual models of what you'd see traveling through the Selkirk Range in the Canadian Rockies. They're complete-scale models equipped with pipings, air pumps, and steam turbine generators. Most of the trains, some made of brass, were built in Japan. The price tag, $250 and more. Prattville train operators say the cost, design, build, and operation distinguishes these trains from toys. Train operators don't like the modeled railroad layout to be confused with toy sets. Rounding the track is the Pacific 462, named for the number and wheel arrangement. There's also the freight GP9 diesel and the Royal Hudson. The actual train once transported the parents of the present Queen of England while touring Canada some 50 years ago. Prattville Central Alabama Model Railroad Club assembled the model. The club has been together for 14 years, but member Phil Hutchinson has been a train lover all his life.
Probably since I could walk and see them. And I can remember as a little boy going with my grandfather to watch trains. So I guess all my life, practically.
Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
What started out as a tour of historic Montgomery homes has grown into a citywide celebration of Montgomery called Jubilee. The 5th Montgomery Jubilee has been expanded to a full weekend of activities for the entire family. The Jubilee concept is aimed at bringing the people of Montgomery together with some good, clean fun. There's something for everyone at Jubilee: road races, arts and crafts, music of all kinds, rides for the kids, and much, much more. One of the highlights of the weekend is the Jubilee Ski Show. The past 2 years, the ski show has been washed out. Rains raised the river to the point where skiing would be hazardous. This year, everything was fine, and the show was a big success. If you've missed Jubilee so far, you still have time to take in the fun tomorrow. For those who haven't joined in the activities, here's some more of the sights and sounds of Montgomery's Jubilee. Emery Stapleton, WSFA TV News.
sponsors of the event prepared well. The Georgia Washington Junior High Band was on hand to entertain the runners, their families, and friends during the pre-race minutes. Montgomery City Police Department had lined off the course and was ready to escort the participants the entire 6.2 miles. The competitors began arriving before 7, many to register for the 10-kilometer race, others to warm up for the grueling run ahead. The spectators were treated to a variety of warm-up techniques. Some recognizable, like the push-up and similar stretching exercises. Then there were the bizarre techniques. Runners used whatever they could find to limber up on. Mailboxes, parking meters, even light poles. Montgomery Mayor Emery Fulmer called the runners to their marks.
Runners to your mark.
See if you can see when they go.
Get set.
An estimated 600 participants set out racing the clock. They would travel down Tallapoosa Street, up Madison Avenue, down Lower Wetumpka Road, across Biltmore Avenue, down Federal Drive, and back down Madison Avenue. By that time, it was clear who would win. 24-year-old Ed Palmer, a physical education teacher at Central High School of Phoenix City, running alone, well ahead of the pack.
For about the first 2 miles, there was a group of about 2 or 3 of us, and then I guess the hills were pretty much over with, and everybody started to relax, but I guess I just kept on pushing, and I was able to break free pretty good there.
Palmer was timed in 30 minutes and 2 seconds.
I was very, very happy with my time. I guess anytime, no matter how good you feel, when you do what you want to do and then you find that you're a couple of seconds off, maybe close to your best, then you're a little bit disappointed. But even though I didn't get under 30, I was 2 seconds away from it. I'm still darn happy with that.
Mayor, you just come back from a briefing by the Secretary of the Army in Washington. What's your reaction to that briefing?
Right. I just came back from Washington, a series of meetings in Washington with the Secretary of the Army, Secretary John Marsh, and I think it's a new direction in the Army, and proud to be his aide. He's an ex-combat infantry soldier. He spent 20 years in the National Guard, has been in Congress, has been a counselor to President Ford, and is eminently qualified, and he rung my bell right away when his opening statement was that the mission of the Army is to fight and win. No more sociology, no more all of the things that we saw tearing the Army down in previous years.
Right.
He means to build the Army up to what it should be, a first-class fighting unit.
Congress has just recently put a lot of money back into the military budget that the previous administration had taken out. Specifically, what kind of impact do you think this will have on the Army?
Well, to give you an example, the new tank that is coming online, a fine piece of equipment, costs nearly $2 million, a little over just at $2 million a copy. And money has been so scarce that they've only been able to get about 8 or 10 a month off the production line. We really need 100 a month or more. It will give the Army the ability to re-equip the active units and the reserves and the National Guard. One of the things that I would like to emphasize is that the Army, as the Secretary visualizes it, is made up of 3 parts. The actives, which are, as everybody understands, and then we've got very fine reserve units in Alabama and very fine National Guard. We're one of the few states, if not the only state, where our Guard strength is right up to full TO&E.
Do you see any of this additional funding that Congress is putting back into the military being used to increase salaries to help keep people in the military?
I think you will see an increase in the pay scales for the sergeants, the career sergeants, middle management officers who the Army has been losing, along with the Air Force and the Navy. That there will be a real pay differential for them to cause them to want to stay in the Army. Worst thing in the world that happens is you get someone in and you train them and you get them just where they're really productive, and then they find greener fields in civilian life, and it's very poor cost effectiveness. For example, to train a helicopter mechanic, get him real good, and then he leaves and goes and finds a higher paying job in civilian life. I think you will see a real trend towards a retention policy in the Army, and that will have to come through better pay and allowances.
Some of the owners have invested more than $6,000 in their motorcycles, but today the riders wanted to invest their time, money, and gasoline in the motorcycle road run for the Arthritis Foundation.
We felt like we needed to do something other than have friendship, and this was a charity that we felt like really needed help, and we decided to set out for that. And it's definitely worth it, because it's just like the Sundays we get together as a club unit and have a run. We're doing the same thing, except we're making a little money for a good cause.
Many riders belong to the Greater Montgomery Goldwing Owners Association, others just motorcycle lovers. The 54 riders chipped in about $350 for the charity. Some received trophies for the best-looking and oldest bike and the youngest and oldest rider. Then the riders, including spouses and kids, started their engines for the 85-mile road run, which journeys through Raymer, Highland Homes, Alabama, to Interstate 65 and back to Montgomery, making 5 stops along the way. Goldwing Club members say everybody wins something, including the motorcycle riders who enjoy riding for fun, and the Arthritis Foundation, which appreciates their doing it. Kim Davis, WSFA, TV News.
The Alabama Planning Committee was formed in 1978. Since that time, the group has sponsored forums for women in the state seeking careers in administration on university and college campuses. The forums aim to provide information on what women need to know when applying for high-level positions. State Coordinator Dr. Martha Tack says that the main thing these women need to know is who to contact and how to apply for these positions. Dr. Tack says the group is working hard organizing the names of women interested in management positions for easier communication with administrators.
We have that housed and have computer capabilities so that we can identify women for various positions, either on boards, commissions, committees, or for employment positions. We're hoping to be able to work with those people in policy-making positions to identify women who fit the criteria that they may be setting for appointment to various types of positions.
Dr. Tack says the Planning Committee has scheduled several workshops later this year in an effort to help women attain administrative positions. Emery Stapleton, WSFA TV News.
I will not attempt to read this proclamation which I have here. Everybody was in favor. That's a lot of people. I know about Alabama. We are between 4 and 5, and that's what we're up against now. And anything that we can do is all everything. You met us down there this morning at 5 o'clock. You know, and he's always willing to serve. And that's where it comes from. Everybody knows that you're always willing to serve. You have a talent, it's exercise, and in the manner in which you.
Well, I have the responsibility and the opportunity to speak for the Army in Alabama. I have briefings from the Secretary of the Army, and in turn disseminate information that he wishes to be out in Alabama, and further have input back to the Secretary of the Army about problems and opportunities that we might perceive to help the Army.
Now, you just come back from Washington. What's your feeling about Washington's perception about the importance of the Guard and the Reserve?
Well, we can't go to war without the Reserve or the Guard. Many of the units that are in the Rapid Deployment Force, for example, in the Reserves, that just don't have enough money or did not have enough money to keep them active. But we've got first-class Reserve units that if the Rapid Deployment Force was called into action, the fighting elements would be on the actives, from the actives, but the Reserve units would make up a tremendous number of the support facilities that would have to go immediately with the Rapid Deployment Force. So both the Guard and the Reserves are essential parts of our Army program. I must say that the spirit of the Army impresses me now. It made me feel good to be there to see these senior officers come in, and they're all on top of their job. They're enthusiastic about it. They recognize that we've got to get the young people into the service. All the services are competing for them, but I want to reemphasize that young people see your recruiting officer, because there's some real some real economic advantages to going into the Army now, into the Guard and into the reserves. The pay is good, opportunities are great for learning, like I say, the advanced technology, management techniques, leadership, all of this.
Mark, how are you this morning? Good to see you.
Thank you, love you, buddy. Joe did a story on this. Thank you, love you, buddy. Jack, those all.
He's a wonderful person. People would have to really know him to know what kind of person he was. He had a heart that was all outdoors. He went for the people that really needed help, you know, and things like that. Because when he was young, he needed it too, you know. And he wrote so many songs, wonderful songs, and so many religious songs. He was always interested in music. And he would write a song, and they would ask him how long it took. He said it only took him 5 minutes. God wrote it for him.
What was your favorite song of Hank Williams?
I Could Never Be Ashamed of You.
That song, plus Your Cheatin' Heart, I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, and many, many more, made Hank Williams a much-loved and respected singer. His fourth-grade teacher, Bama Watson, remembers when Hank played in a small band at Georgiana School. She says Hank showed quite a bit of musical interest then, and now. Fans continue to show their memory of Hank Williams, Alabama's legendary country music star. Kim Davis, WSFA, TV News.
In making the announcement that he has canceled his trip, Governor James said that he will probably call the legislature back into special session in late July or early August to consider the education budget.
I hold that the tax dollar is sacred. And I hold that the legislature has an obligation to develop a budget where need and priority is clearly defined. The education dollar totally represents $1.3 billion out of approximately $2 billion of our state taxes.
Governor James added that he also may include some of his education and retirement system proposals in the special session, depending on what kind of cooperation he can get from legislators. All of the proposals died in the regular session, which ended last week. In regards to filling some current vacancies in state government, James says he will likely choose a new Public Service Commission member later this week and fill some other vacant positions next week. The governor says he will try to reschedule his canceled trip to the Orient in December. From the Capitol, Dan Black, WSFA TV News.
It appears that they may have been involved in as many as 103 burglaries in luxury townhouse apartment-type areas in the city of Montgomery, as well as approximately 30 burglaries in the Tuscaloosa area and burglaries in the Homewood and Birmingham areas.
Silver that was stolen, we have a lot of silver that we've recovered from him, but not the silver that y'all are going to be showing the picture of.
Now, where did they steal it?
You'll see it out in the antique rugs, pot plants,
Montgomery investigators recovered the silver in Chicago a year ago, where police say it was taken by a group of gypsies. The gypsies allegedly stole pieces of silver from a number of homes in Montgomery and other cities. Montgomery police have been working with authorities in those areas trying to locate the silver owners, but in many cases they've been unable to do so. Since the silver hasn't been claimed, local police will auction it off to the highest bidder. This Thursday, the silver will be on display in Room A at the Civic Center from 10 to 1, where the public will have an opportunity to see it. Then it will be auctioned between 1 and 5. Quite a few of the pieces are multiple-piece sets, but police plan to auction items individually. Most of the pieces are silver-plated, with some sterling silver. All the silver has been appraised, with bids starting at the minimum appraised value. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News.
I think he may be aware that this could be a substantial number and amounts of money.
And that's 1% of the claims paid. That'd be total all.
Per transaction. Then I'm
been checked by the sheriff's department. He has no record of any kind.
Some improvements, making some more. The inside looks good. Well, that making off the price. And, I appreciate that. And I were talking before the meeting and sort of going over some of the high points, and it looks in fact like $3 or $4 for a check written for claims. It just doesn't sound like it would be paid claims. From which would be paid claims.
And that would be a transaction. And then when you...
Whether it be daily or bi-weekly or weekly or whatever, that would be...
Mr. Gerard brought the fact that benefit trust. Now, I'm checked by the sheriff's department. He has no record of any kind.
I know you have to mail it. They said if I got it, I brought it to them, they would...
I tell you what, if you'll give me a call early in the morning, I'll have a letter for you, ready for you to take it to me.
I appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Bobby Unser's car was the first to cross the finish line in the Indianapolis 500 auto race yesterday. Mario Andretti was second. But while Unser was celebrating his apparent victory, Andretti and other drivers were complaining he had won unfairly. It happened on lap 149, following an accident. The yellow caution flag was waved. No passing permitted. But Unser, coming out of the pits, raced along the track apron, passing 7 cars. Today, when the official results were posted, Andretti was first, Unser second, penalized 1 lap for passing under the yellow. This was the first time Indianapolis 500 race officials had taken the title away from the driver who crossed the finish line first. And today, people here at the Speedway were stunned by the decision. That's all they were talking about along Gasoline Alley behind the track. Unser said he was appealing the decision, a decision that could cost him several $100,000 in winnings and endorsements.
I feel bad enough as it could be. You know, I can't feel much worse than I do now.
Unser complains videotapes of the race show Andretti also passed cars under the yellow flag on lap 149. Race officials studied those tapes and still declared Andretti the winner. A bittersweet victory for him.
The unfortunate thing about that is that he went through all the hoopla, all the beautiful things that a winner experiences in victory lane, and then it was taken away, and then the victory is given to me, and I will never get to experience that myself.
Ms. Weidler says not only does the Department of Education limit employment opportunities for women and blacks, but she accuses the state's junior, community, and technical colleges as well. And referring to a 14-page study done by the ACLU regarding employment, promotional, and salary opportunities, Ms. Weidler called the hiring practices a calculated injustice. She says blacks have trouble getting hired, and women and blacks have difficulty getting promotions once they're employed. Ms. Wilder says while the percentage of blacks working in the education department has increased, the number of blacks in the department is only half the number that work in other state departments. Currently, according to the ACLU report, of the 1,337 department employees, only 10.8% are black. The report also shows that of the junior and community colleges surveyed, only 2 of the 20 schools showed a steady increase in the percentage of black faculty from 1975 to 1979. With copies of the report, which have been sent to Governor James and state school officials, the ACLU has made numerous recommendations.
One, that more blacks be hired in the State Department of Education and in the traditionally white schools. 2, that there be promotion of more blacks and women into administrative positions, and 3, that employment of minorities and women in non-traditional positions be encouraged.
Ms. Weidler says without changes in the system, opportunities for blacks and women in educational institutions will remain narrow. She says if necessary, the ACLU will go to court to see that changes are made. Dan Black, WSFA TV News.
Within the department, you find that white males hold 88.
Military balance with the Soviets, parallels to our national 707 10 to 12 years ago. This will give us greatly enhanced ability. Afghanistan, including the abortive hostage rescue attempt. Our existing FB-111 for years and get that into production fairly quickly. And a fourth option, we'll be reporting that to Congress very promptly and hope to get a go-ahead this summer. It has a positive effect on our allies, particularly NATO Europe and the NATO countries. As you know, we have been pushing them to increase their share of the defense burden, to increase the money that they're putting in their own defense. And it cannot help but have a deterrent effect upon the Soviets and other would-be aggressors.
Both officials were visibly upset over the situation. Police Chief Charles Swindle called for a facility to house Alabama's criminally insane.
On June 25th, he had been out a very short time. He began to make threats on the life of a public official, Mr. Don Watkins, based on an affidavit signed by Mr. Watkins, which is in here. Judge Thomas ordered him picked up and returned to Bryce's because he was so mentally defective that he was to require treatment.
30-year-old David Candidate's mental and criminal problems date as far back as 1970, when he was committed to Bryce Hospital by his family. Both Chief Swindle and Evans say the man has no business on the street and that it's clear to local police, judges, and others in the criminal justice system that he's prone to violence. Court records show candidate committed robberies and assaulted local citizens frequently over the years between visits to Bryce. Officials there would keep him a few months, then release him over the objections of local judges and prosecutors. Both murders, the killing of Arthur Crozier in 1977 and the Felix Richardson murder last Friday, the one that candidate is alleged to have done, were unprovoked butcher knife attacks in broad daylight, and each time David Candidate told officials he did it in self-defense. Police say neither of the victims knew Candidate. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
In transporting these children themselves. Now, it is very simple for a foster parent to pick up the phone and going back into the clothing allowance. But let me give you another positive end of this now. Like say,
well, we feel like we have achieved our goals that we set out to. Foster parents have had an increase in board payments for the children, and we have had a change in our physicals. They're moved from every 2 years now to every 4 years. And also, we feel like that if we carry on with this strike any further, that children will be suffering. And that should be.
Mayor Emery Farmer says he recently received the okay from the HUD office in Atlanta. HUD representatives say some of the proposed activities for the Arts Center are ineligible, but the eligible activities outweigh the others. Several months ago, Councilman Joe Reed originally tried to reprogram the money from the Arts Center to several drainage projects, but his resolution was tabled until the appeal decision was handed down. While speaking for the drainage projects, Reed said he feels providing adequate drainage is the city's most urgent need. Councilman Donald Watkins agreed, calling the Arts Center a waste of money. He suggests that the proposed activities be transferred to the existing Houston Hills Community Center. Despite both objections, the council voted against reprogramming the money for the drainage projects. Mayor Farmer says the Arts Center will need more money to complete the project and says he's already applied for a Parks and Recreation Recovery Grant to make up the difference. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News. Reed says his new plan includes the minor revisions recommended last week by city planner statistician Judy Waldrop. He says the yellow lines indicate his original boundary lines, with the red line showing the revised boundaries. Reed also provided the committee members with copies of an agreement signed by the 1978 council, which he says requires the council to come up with a redistricting plan that doesn't gerrymander existing council members out of their districts. Reed says the mayor's plan would gerrymander his predominantly black District 3 away from him and narrow the possibility of a black being elected from that district. Even though all the council members were invited to the committee meetings, only 3 committee members attended the proceedings. And when Reed's plan came up for a vote, both he and Watkins voted for it. Mrs. Reynolds voted against it. Reed says the plan will now become the committee's official recommendation to be presented to the council. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News.
Well, it's like starting over, really. Just like starting over, that's all.
What kind of goals have you set for yourself down here?
Well, my first goal is to make the team. Then when I make the team, I guess I'll shoot for the stars, you know, for everything.
You come in a unique situation. This is a team that won one ball game. They're looking for help like yours. Does that add a little more challenge to it?
Yeah, you know, I was kind of shocked, you know, when I found out I was drafted by New Orleans. But then the more I thought about it, you know, looked over the situation, and then, you know, it was great for me, you know.
How about Bum Phillips as a coach? How you like him?
Well, I think he's a great coach and even a better person, you know. Yeah.
What kind of defensive stuff is he putting together for you guys?
Well, we were just, you know, kind of going on basic stuff, 3-man line and 4-man line. It's sort of like orientation right now. We won't know until we get into camp maybe later on this summer.
Have you been in the clubhouse long enough to see what the atmosphere is around the guys? Do they have a winning attitude this year?
Well, I haven't, really had a chance to, kind of fill it out. They still kind of, the rookies tipping around, kind of scared. Then the veterans trying to play the macho role, but we'll find out as it goes on.
Every time I've talked to a rookie, I've heard funny stories that the vets have done to him. Have they gotten you yet with anything?
No, but I'm always waiting. I'm looking for them, but I'm be ready when they come.
Thanks a lot.
The test is between DuPont, STP, and Protec. Protec is the newcomer. It's only been on the market for 6 months. Distributors are traveling around the country trying to show that their product is better than the others. Fuel additives are supposed to absorb the moisture that forms in your car's gas tank. By pouring water into a test tube containing each treatment, you can see how they work.
It's called emulsified or surfactant.
Only the Protec that turns a milky white absorbs the water. Then the contents of each test tube is poured into a container. A match is lit, but only the Protec burns well. This part of the test shows that water prohibits some of the additives from burning, and burning is what the fuel is supposed to do. Another part of the test involves sulfuric acid. Since some fuels nowadays have a high sulfur content, the water that forms in the tank can turn into sulfuric acid. Protec makes a metal protector that actually protects your engine from the sulfur buildup. Distributor Bob Swanner demonstrates here by pouring the Protec into his hand, then pouring the acid on top. His hand doesn't burn, but the paper towel does.
And I've seen additives just come and go, and everybody wants you to handle their additives, and as far as I'm concerned, and claim that an additive makes and a half a dollar will buy you a cup of coffee. Nobody that's in this profession is impressed by any claims. We're sick up to here with it. But when this was demonstrated to me, just like what you saw, that made me a believer, because I've never seen anything do like this.
The test isn't complete yet, so don't make a decision on which product is the best. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
These are obviously good products. They've sold an awful lot of it. I'll keep these lined up so you can tell.
Hello, I'm Lisa Nielsen.
And I'm Chris Grimshaw. Friday night at 7 on TV 12, we have a very special news program for kids and their parents. It's called The Legislature. How does it work?
We'll show your legislators in action making the laws that affect you every day. Plus, we'll talk to some school kids and find out their views on Alabama lawmaking.
I like for kids 11 and over to be able to vote.
The Legislature. How does it work? Friday night at 7 on TV 12.
Hello, I'm Lisa Nielsen.
And I'm Chris Grimshaw. Friday night at 7 on TV 12, we have a very special news program for kids and their parents. It's called The Legislature. How does it work?
We'll show your legislators in action making the laws that affect you every day. Plus, we'll talk to some school kids and find out their views on Alabama lawmaking.
I would like to stop trying to have more highways.
The Legislature. How does it work? Tonight at 7 on TV 12.
I'd like to make laws where people who murder people don't just get like, they don't get home free just to go sit in a jail.
Have you ever wondered how laws are made? Hello, I'm Lisa Nielsen.
And I'm Chris Grimshaw. Friday night at 7, we'll explain the processes of making Alabama laws that affect you every day during the legislature. How does it work?
It's a TV 12 news special for kids and their parents, guaranteed to be educational and entertaining.
We'll take a look at some legislators in action, and we'll talk to some school kids about their views on Alabama lawmaking.
They're usually rich, and so they have the time to do it.
A bill is like when it comes in the mail sometimes, so some people had to go down and pay it.
Need better playground.